Hello, everyone. Really good to have you here. We're going to be starting soon. We're going to give people a few more minutes to arrive. And yeah, basically take the time and we're going to start in 2 minutes. In the meantime, please feel free to let us know your name, what are you working on? Are you looking for a co-founder? And this is supposed to be more of a very short, intimate, let's say, um, gathering where we can do a little bit of brainstorming on the topic of finding co-founders and so on. So speak some. In about 1 or 2 minutes, we'll be starting. Good. So we are good to go. So again, a very short session about the difficult topic of finding a co-founder. So let me just share my screen for a second. Great. Great. By the way, we want to make it interactive. So in case you have questions, just shoot them in the chat and I'll try my best to answer them during the webinar. So generally, the idea today is to talk a little bit about the best practices for co-founding a startup. It's difficult to find a co-founder, definitely not an easy thing to do. So hopefully after this session, we're going to be have a little bit more clarity on this topic. I do want to say that basically this is done in partnerships with the IBM Startup Program. It's a new program. It's actually a very cool program. It's for startups and software developers, accelerators, investors. What do you get? Mentorship from IBM Network. Needless to say, it's an amazing network. You can pitch your solution to IBM clients and investor network, which is great because pitching your idea is always good. And you can also use IBM tokens with cloud credits to their Watson X AI platform. So it's at no cost, no equity, and just a great name to be associated to, one of the biggest companies in the world. So ibm.startupblink.com. And I would apply. What do you have to lose? And I think it's a great program. Great. I will also tell you that there is an opportunity to we'll try to share the links in the chat also for the IBM program. There is another opportunity for to pitch your startup. So if one of you is working on a startup and want an opportunity to pitch it to a global crowd, we do a pitching event on the last Wednesday of each month. And you can just arrive, you have 4 minutes, you pitch your startup, and who knows what's going to happen. So we had some very interesting connections in previous events. And you're going to be featured in front of more than 50,000 people on the newsletter. So there's a lot of benefits there. And you can also sign up at pitching at startuplink.com. Let me actually send you those two links. One is ibm.startuplink.com and the other is pitching.startuplink.com. So feel free to arrive to nice opportunities. Good. Today we're going to speak a little bit about the co-founders, but before that, I'll just let you know that basically this presentation is, my name is Eddie David, I'm the CEO of StartupBlink. StartupBlink is a global startup ecosystem map and a research center. It's a place where you can find 200,000 startups on a map. Probably if you have a startup, it's there already. You can check, just like you see here, the stats of your startups. why are they ranked regionally in their industry, in their city, and so on and so on. So that's something that can that makes sense. And I'll just tell you that one of the things that we do for free in StartupBlink is rank the startup ecosystems of 1,000 cities, 100 countries. And it's important for me to choose our ecosystem very wisely. There are three big questions, according to Naval Ravikant and according to many others, big questions of life and in your business. The first one is what are you working on? The second one that we're going to try to answer on today is who are you working with? Okay, the co-founder, of course. And the third one is where do you work or where do you stay? And the idea is that if you choose the location where you are wisely, uh, simply the amount of opportunities that arrive your way is by far much better than if you're stuck in a startup ecosystem that is not active or very dormant or non-existent. So I just recommend to have a look at the research at startupblink.com, see where your city is ranked, compare it to cities that you can relocate to or spend more time in. And it makes sense to spend a lot of time in a great startup ecosystem. So that's something to think about. Specifically, if you're looking for co-founders, it makes even more sense because the idea is that the startup ecosystems or those top cities globally are also meeting place of where people that want to build great things, they usually would find them in one of those. They would arrive from I don't know, from Asia, from Africa, from East Europe, from Israel, from Latin America, and they would go to one of those locations simply because it's easier to meet the perfect co-founder as well. Like imagine if you're trying to find a co-founder in a small village compared to finding a co-founder in San Francisco or New York or London, it's very clear which one is better. So it's something that we have to think about, and also for the hunt of finding a high quality, basically co-founder, being in the right place means a lot. So let's talk a little bit about the topic of co-founder. Again, it's going to be a very short presentation, about 10 minutes or 15 minutes max. Feel free to ask questions, and then we have the time to deal with questions. So first of all, the first question that I guess makes sense over here is why should you get a co-founder? And I'm going to tell you about some of the good reasons to have a co-founder. First of all, when you build a startup, the heaviest cost is your salary and the salaries of whoever is involved. The minute you have someone that has equity and basically feels on this thing like it's their child, the salary is less important to them, just like it's less important to you. And that's one less salary of market value that you would have to pay, which is critical when you start something. So that's one. Now, some critical roles require equity for full commitment. So that's also important in the sense of you can't really build something truly big by yourself. So you do have a lot of solopreneurs, people that are building a lot of startups. Like just today, I heard an interview with Peter Levels from Nomadis. So you have a lot of interesting startups that you can build. But if you're trying to do something in the style of building a Facebook or a Google, there is a reason why those companies started with a co-founder. Even Elon Musk in PayPal started with a lot of co-founders. He couldn't do it on his own. So when you're trying to build something extremely clear, something extremely big, it makes sense to have. You can necessarily do it on. And I'll tell you also that if you're trying to get investors, for many investors, especially those that are aiming for future unicorns, it's a very bad red flag, and probably it would deem you as non-investable if you're doing it on your own. Again, it doesn't mean that it's not okay to do it on your own, because you can build a great business on your own. But if you're trying to change the world and create something super gigantic and also raise massive amount of investment from professional investors, alone doesn't work. Just doesn't work. The other benefits is basically that you have more personal freedom. You share the responsibility. I have to tell you, when you have a startup, the amount of pressure and the, the, the sheer feeling of responsibility is massive. So when you have someone to share this with, it just makes all the difference. And the emotional support, in low moments when things are going to hell, usually your co-founder is the person you can speak with about more than anything. Especially if you're lucky, you can do this with your team member. But again, when you're starting, it's really hard to find those team members. So that's a lot of good reasons to get a co-founder. Similarly, there are a few reasons not to get a co-founder. Let's quickly go over them. First of all, it should be said, there are many, many niche startups that were built by solopreneurs, style Peter Levels that I mentioned before, especially those that have tech and coding skills. So if you do have tech and coding skills, being a solopreneur is actually a much more viable option. But you can also be a solopreneur even if you're not a coder. I'm an example of that, but it makes your life easier because the cost of developers is so high that you can do it on your own. Maybe you can even build a startup on your own. But again, with the limitations we talked about, without raising a lot of money or no money at all, and without building something gigantic. Another negative reason of not having a co-founder is that you can create a lot of friction. Look, it's people. At the end of the day, everyone has different incentives and different emotions and different goals. So there can be quite a lot of emotional pull for the conflicts. In some way, it can remind us of a marriage. And a lot of marriages are going bad. I can say that statistically, a lot more partnerships are even going bad than marriages. So if the divorce rate is 30%, in marriages, in the startup co-founding space, it would be much, much higher. Then again, and now what happens when there is a divorce? Changing an idea to pivot is not that hard. It's hard, it's painful, but it's not that hard. Changing a co-founder is much harder. There is someone that feels like this baby is also theirs, and it can be very messy. So something to think about. You have some loss of freedom. Now you have to make decisions together and so on and so on. It reduces your equity. Basically, let's say you start with someone and basically you do 50-50, not recommended by the way, we'll speak about this in a second. You have 50% less equity. So that's the idea. And it's not only the equity, it's also less control of the company. Like it's enough that 2 or 3 new people join as investors, and then you get really diluted in your ability to make decisions. The conclusion is that, as far as I'm concerned, you should get a co-founder only if there is a reason for that. So it shouldn't be automatically or different. Like I must get a co-founder. You have to look at the why yes, the why not, think about what you're trying to achieve, and then make a decision. Let's talk a little bit about where or how you can find a co-founder. If you are here in the investor webinar, it's the same advice. And it basically says that if you don't really know your future co-founder right now, you have a problem. The idea over here is that most co-founders in startups have gone together a very long time before the startup even started. So if you're in a situation that you're looking for a co-founder when you start a startup, statistically you're in problems. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be successful and you might find the most amazing co-founder, but statistically you're really shooting yourself in the foot compared to those that knew the startup, their co-founder in advance before. So where should you go to find it? First of all, your existing network. And that's a reminder for all of us. Work on building your network. Your network is like an investment. Like the more people you know, the more cool people that you know, the more opportunities you have in absolutely everything. And especially in finding a co-founder. More specifically, to go to meetups, startup events, co-working spaces, increases your chance of finding this special person. There are specific co-founder events like Startup Weekend, when you're building a startup over a weekend with a group of people, hackathons, and so on. Very recommended if you're in a situation that you're looking for this startup or this founder. And then again, there is also the past connection. Remember, we talked about the idea of you have to know them before. It makes more sense to find people that you were part with in strong, cohesive communities. It could be military service, it could be universities, it can be even be your school or whatever, but you can actually validate for people and you know them well enough. And there are also online platforms. Some of them are co-founders lab. Y Combinator has a co-founder matching. Definitely we check those as well. The online one are less effective, to be honest. Again, it's all a game of statistics. You're never going to have 100% chance of success here, but the more you create those conditions and plan in advance, the more you have more of a 70 or 80% chance of success instead of 20%. It's better to have 70%. So that's the idea. The bottom line, the more active and social you are, the more your network improves, and the more it's going to be easier to find a co-founder. So that's the idea. How to choose the right co-founder? So first of all, don't go against your intuition. If you found someone and everyone tells you, "Whoa, they're great" or whatever, but you feel like something is wrong, something is wrong. Don't do it. So that's one. Connected point to that, if you wouldn't spend every day in the next few years with this person, don't have them as a co-founder. You need personal chemistry. There's going to be such low moments and difficult struggles and so on and so on. Like the person, like really, if you don't like the person, it doesn't make any sense. So that's the idea. High integrity, high skills. So you want high skills, but more than anything, high integrity. You do not want to do business with someone that you cannot trust. It kills startup. So when it's so disappointing also to see someone that has low integrity, just can't do business like that. So it's important to choose wisely, specifically on that. You don't want a clone. You want to pick someone that can do things that you can't do. And we have the aversion, let's say we're into marketing. We love marketing people because that's our people. Don't find another marketing person. Find a coder, find a salesperson, find an operation person, and so on and so on. But avoid finding an identical clone, although that's our comfort sport. So that's important. And you can write down what would be a perfect co-founder in terms of skills and character. It makes sense because a lot of it's just very non-intentional. It makes sense to kind of plan it, like say, who do I really want? And then again, connected to what we talked about before, preferably it's someone that you have past experience with, that you even experience some low moments with. Um, one of the reasons of why they say that startups in Israel are successful is because you have done military service with your co-founders and you know them also in their worst moments and also in your worst moments when things are tough, when there is stress, pressure, and so on and so on. Same goes for if you've done a trek with someone or you went to university under crazy conditions and so on and so on. Have someone in your life that you didn't just meet yesterday and seem to have to do a good impression. Have someone that you went through things in life with. And that would greatly improve because startups are so difficult and you're going to have such difficult moments in your startup. So it makes sense to try to pick someone that was with you in the trenches, whatever those trenches were. Important to make sure that you have the same vision, the same goals, the same time investment. A lot of us are not really talking with anyone, and we're like, yeah, it's gonna be great, and we're good friends and whatever. And then you end up disappointed. They end up disappointed. So why not talk about, look, that's what I can do, that's what I can give, that's why I intend to contribute. And in many cases, people don't even know, but at least have the conversation. It's important to have this conversation. And of course, check life circumstances, marriage, having kids, people that plan on relocation and so on. Try to ask your co-founder, look, what's your plan? You're going to stay in the same place? You want to get married soon? If you want to get married and have a family soon, now you have an extra stress to a startup because the startup is not making money, so it's very likely that your co-founder is going to quit and so on and so on. So it's important to be on the same page and not to have so many surprises. You're going to be surprised anyway with a startup and also with a co-founder. If you do those steps, at least you're going to have a little bit less surprises. So that's the idea. Best practices for co-founding a startup. So first of all, please decide on the CEO, the roles, the responsibilities, the decision-making mechanism. CEO again. A lot of us are doing, let's do 50-50 and take decisions together. And then what happens if you don't agree on something? Have a CEO. It makes sense. Connected to that, in most cases, 50-50 distribution of the equity doesn't make sense. How do you maybe better build it? You look at who contributed until now. You look at the risk each of you is taking. You look on future commitment that each of you is willing to give. Like if someone says, "Hey, I'm gonna have to get a job at some point because I can only do part-time," equity hit. And you look at the track record. If you have a star in the team that actually led a startup to an exit or whatever, they deserve more equity. They're going to improve the chance of success. So I'm just saying this automatic 50-50 doesn't make a lot of sense. I will say, connected to that you will never get the equity right. Whatever you do, you're always going to get the equity wrong. So no, feel good about it. You're either going to win on the equity or lose. It doesn't matter, but you're never going to get it right. You also have to accept the risk that picking the wrong co-founder can never be fully addressed. And sometimes you pick the wrong person and they're going to be on your cap table for years, and that's fine. In terms of of the number, two is perfect. Two is the magic number. Historically, also. Three is okay, not a big fan. Four is way, way, way too much. And romantic couples have an extra risk, and investors also don't like it. Because if you fight and there is a fallout, the startup is gone. So that's the idea. There is a saying in Italian, clear agreement, good friendship. Make sure that you have a clear agreement with your founder. It makes a lot of sense. So that's something to think about. You're actually respecting a lot more your friendship if you're signing a contract. Because the worst thing you can do for your friendship is basically say, "Hey, we're gonna solve it when things happen," and then boom, there is no mechanism to solve. A contract is a mechanism to solve problems. A contract is there when there is a disagreement about something. Hopefully, you never have to go to a contract, but if it's there, it's clear. And when there is no clarity, there is a lot more conflict. So don't shy away from a contract. Vesting is critical. People quit like crazy and they come with the best intention, and after 3 months, they're no longer in the startup. Make sure that there is a vesting element in the contract that says, look, you have to stay 3 years for your equity to vest and to actually be existing, and so on. And another thing to remember that even if the startup is successful, it's not for always. Co-founding agreements are not necessarily marriages. You took a co-founder because you couldn't pull it off in the beginning on your own. But when you grow to 30 team members and so on and so on, you're now in a situation that maybe the company grew the co-founder. Maybe one of your co-founders is no longer has the capabilities of leading a scaling department and so on and so on. So the idea is also not to take it so seriously, to tell yourself, hey, you know what, I might be here for a limited time. My co-founder might be here for a limited time. Let's prepare for it and not act like it's a marriage. Because if you act like it's a marriage and something happens, then it's a big drama. Now, if you do start on your own without co-founders, you will attract more co-founders because you have skin in the game and you have something. You've created something. It also gives you much better negotiation power with equity split and so on. So maybe it's worthwhile to start a little bit on your own. And I also recommend to have skin in the game, which means that each one of you is putting like $5,000 or something like that. You do not want to start a business with someone that doesn't put $5,000 into the business. I don't care if you take the $5,000 that they give and set them on fire. It doesn't matter. The idea is just to show that they're gonna be there when times are tough, and they're gonna be there on when it's not fun. And putting $5,000 is not fun. Of course, some people put a lot more, but the idea is that you look for skin in the game, not only those that haven't filled the atom and whatever, but then when you actually have to get $1,000 to build a website, they're gone. So find it in advance, not later. And that's basically it. So we covered, I think, a lot of the topics that might be relevant. I hope it was useful for you. Yeah, if you have any questions, you can send us an email to feedback@startupblink.com. The report of the 1,000 cities is at report.startuplink.com. The IBM program is ibm.startuplink.com. So feel free, and we're going to do more of those lectures. Also, the pitching event that comes soon. If you want to register, again, pitching.startuplink.com. And really great to have you today, and enjoy the rest of your day. Good luck with finding the perfect co-founder. Bye-bye.